Welcome to Launch Your Classroom. I'm Kyle Pope. The winter break is upon us, and with it, the opportunity to reflect on the many accomplishments teachers have achieved throughout the year. The Launch Your Classroom team over the past few months visited schools to speak with teachers firsthand. We were truly inspired by the talented educators and their dedication to the profession, their students, and their communities. As we all know, some of the best professional development comes from listening to outstanding teachers in the field. So today, we would like to share some of their success stories with you in the hopes that you can learn from them as much as we have.
It's fun to be around Miss Carter. Of course it is fun to be around Miss Carter. My name is Shion Carter. I am a math resource teacher and I'm from Jamaica. When I was young going to primary school, I remember walking on the road with my mother and there would be students telling her how well they are doing now as a result of her help to get them to read. And so I've always been inspired by my mother, so I knew teaching was the place for me. You know, I love this excitement, right? I have a passion for special needs, and so when I'm preparing, I try every way to ensure that whatever I'm doing, it will be effective for the kids and the kids will learn. I believe that kids should learn while having fun. You know, it will not always be the case because sometimes you really have to get into the meat of the matter. But for me, engagement is a very big deal. All right, we're ready. And so for every lesson that I'm teaching, there's probably a game that will be incorporated, or there's something for them to move around, something for them to discuss. I absolutely love creating the jingles. Of course I have a jingle, all right? So it goes something like this. The top number is the numerator, the bottom number is the denominator, the bar. All right, so I come up with a jingle for almost every lesson. We did integers in the co-teaching classroom, and one of the jingles was adding with the same signs. So that jingle goes, if the signs are the same, we add and keep the signs. What do? We add and keep the signs. Signs are the same, we add and keep the signs. What do? We add and keep the signs. And I give them a chance to come in with it. So if the signs are the same, you would come in and you will say we add and keep the signs, but you have to do it to my tune. If you don't do it to my tune, you're out of it, right? So I try to give other persons an opportunity to jump in. So I'm going to say that with you, I'm going to say 2 times and then you're going to join in with me, all right? Ready? I feel that repetition is very important, especially for students with special needs. And so I don't just wait for the review at the end to, repeat what I've said before, but throughout the lesson, I'll be doing the jingle. So I don't just do the jingle at the beginning of the lesson and that's it. Faster now. Ready? The top number is the new. Or I'll be just humming the jingle, walking around. If I come to your desk and I offer you help, my help may just be So I'm just humming the thing and it comes back, oh, we add and keep the signs. And then they are able to move on. So repetition is very important. All right, you're not so sure. It's okay that you're not so sure. If I give them a test and I hear them humming or I hear them tapping to the beat of that jingle, I know that they understand what they're doing. For example, just the other day we were doing, if the signs are the same, we add and keep the signs, and you could hear persons humming in the test. So it works and it sticks even when we don't know as teachers that it sticks. It can be frustrating for some teachers. You don't have a special ed background and you have a student who they're acting a particular way in class. You have no knowledge about it. You don't understand why they do the things that they do. So if I can give other teachers a voice or help to give them an understanding of how to deal with these special needs kids, I will do whatever I can. And I see that it is very impactful. So it is always important to advocate for the kids, trying to get them to understand that, yes, I may have a disability, but I have the potential to be anything I want to be. You know, when we were growing up, we used to sing, I am a promise, I am a possibility, I am a promise with a capital P. And so I just feel like advocating for them, giving them a voice, helping them to understand themselves. It motivates them to do better. It causes persons who don't talk, who are in their little shells, to get out of their shells. It is not all bad that I have a disability. You know, there are new horizons that I can reach even with a disability. I am a promise, I am a possibility, I am a promise with a capital P. I am a great big bundle of potentiality. Oh, yes.
I see you finished your quiz, Jasper. How was it?
Easy, thanks to all the tricks you taught us.
Tricks? Whatever do you mean?
You know, all those fun things you do to help us remember what we've learned.
Those are helpful, aren't they? We all need help remembering things from time to time, especially when we're learning new information. In fact, research shows that input, or new data, needs to be repeated several times before we can store it in our short-term memory. Without that repetition, we'll forget. But the key to helping students remember new content is to move their learning from short-term memory to long-term memory. How do we do that? By creating different ways for students to interact with that information. These sensory memory tricks are known as recall techniques, and there are 3 types. Audible tricks, or catchy songs, poems, and mnemonic devices. Visual tricks, like pictorial representations and graphic organizers. And physical tricks, which are tied to movements like dance and hand gestures. Say, Jasper, do you remember the goal we set out to achieve at the beginning of this unit?
Sure, to explain the relationship between waveforms and their energy.
That's right. Before introducing my lesson, I examined this objective and determined the important information my students needed to remember. This not only helped focus my teaching, but allowed me to choose the best recall techniques for each situation. To begin, I used an audible trick to help my students remember the colors in the visible light spectrum. The colors follow a pattern: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. But that's 7 whole things to remember. It's easy for them to get jumbled up in students' minds. The mnemonic device Roy G. Biv provides a fun and simple way to keep the colors in the correct order. It's much easier to remember this one catchy phrase than 7 separate words. I presented this mnemonic device using the I do, we do, you do technique. First, I demonstrated the mnemonic device by displaying it and saying it out loud. Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Then, I invited my students to use the mnemonic device with me. Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Great job! Next, I asked my students to repeat the colors on their own.
Roy G. Biv, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet.
Well done! This gradual release of information allows students to transition from learning the process to learning the content. Now we can move on to wavelengths. This topic makes a lot more sense when illustrated visually, so I used a pictorial representation. Here you can see the colors of light and a drawing of each of their wavelengths. I had my students draw their own diagrams, which kept them engaged in their learning. When they finished the illustration, they could clearly see how the wavelengths grew progressively shorter across the spectrum of light.
Now it's time for my favorite part, the wavelength dance.
That's right. I used a movement-based recall technique to demonstrate how different wavelengths travel at different speeds. Jasper, would you like to demonstrate?
Yeah! Violet has the shortest wavelength, so it moves like this. Red has the longest wavelength, so it moves like this.
As you can see, incorporating movement into your lesson helps students retain information because it's fun and active. Before today's summative assessment, I encouraged my students to say, draw, or act out the techniques that work best for them. Referring back to these simple tricks before a big test leads to better assessment results and reduced anxiety. Be sure to rotate through different techniques so students stay engaged and have an opportunity to learn in the way that works best for them. By providing such a memorable framework, you allow students to fill their minds with new and complex ideas. And that's a positive outcome you can see, hear, and feel.
Hello, my name is Milton, and I come from Bolivia, a small country in the heart of South America. I am here to teach Spanish, my native language. I give my students the first lights into the world of the Hispanic community. I love what I do, I love teaching, it's my passion, and I'm here to share my culture as well as to learn from my students. Global Schools is one of the biggest projects humanity has to revert the problems we have caused by being too many in such a small place, let's say. When the United Nations realized that we needed to do something to revert the impact we have had globally in our planet. This gradually translated into what we can call the Sustainable Development Goals. The goals are 17 areas that humanity can definitely work on to revert some of the damage we have done, to be able to leave a better world to our new generations. As a language teacher, I think I'm in a privileged position to incorporate the SDGs in my lessons. A language teacher will touch different topics. We talk about geography, we talk about biology, we talk about society in general, right? And so the SDGs are precisely that. They touch each one of those objectives. And so language teachers have this incredible opportunity to touch the whole spectrum of SDGs in their own classrooms. The United Nations also created an instrument that will guarantee this implementation of these solutions, and that's the Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And out of this initiative, we have now Global Schools. Global Schools comes to be the arm that we have to create certain change. We target schools because we believe that for a few hours a day, we have the newer generations in our rooms, and so we can multiply our efforts and put in the seed of global change in our students' minds. And so every day, little by little, we give our kids the example they need to apply the concepts of global schools and the concepts of sustainability. With global schools, we tend to look into the future most of the time. I have incorporated activities like looking into the future and develop new ways of, for example, transportation. This is when kids get completely involved and they come up with incredible ideas. They are thinking about, for example, processing water to get hydrogen and create new fuels, let's say, that will power cars, new trains, and new airplanes, for example, making it clean energy. So that's one of the examples in which SDGs can be incorporated in the traditional vocabulary lesson, but lets students imagine new worlds. The dreams of today sometimes become the realities of tomorrow, so I just let them express freely, and by them sharing each of their inventions, we motivate each other for brighter futures. I feel that putting my school in a global map is an incredible achievement that sometimes I never thought could happen. But to see that their school is in a global map representing not just the county, but the state, and it is the only global school in this area of the United States. It gives them a new sense of pride, and you know, the message is clear. Just get out there, do things, and make your school, you know, bigger than you found. The fact that I am affecting the lives of, in this semester, 120 students every day. That makes me feel good. It makes me feel that I'm leaving a legacy for the future. My lessons will live in each of my students' lives, and that is an incredible feeling to have.
Students have the capacity for great imagination and innovation, but often they're dismissed as being too young to understand how the world works. As a result, they may hesitate when it comes to sharing their ideas. As a teacher, you can empower your students by inviting them to problem solve for real-world issues happening around them. Engaging students in this way sends an inspiring message that, regardless of whether an idea is truly realistic, the process of discovery is meaningful in and of itself. It's important to guide this creative process by setting firm parameters. So let's start by looking at how you will plan for this activity. First, examine a high-stakes objective in your curriculum and match it to a real-world problem. Here in our community, leaders are seeking ways to make our public playground more inclusive and accessible, which ties into our objective about city planning. Then, determine how your students should represent their proposed solutions. The final product could be an essay, diagram, or presentation. My students will create a diorama of their playground designs and present them to the class. The next step is to develop the criteria you will use to assess your students' products. Keep in mind that your students' ideas may be fantastical, so rather than evaluate practicality, focus on things like creativity and clarity. It's important to build purposeful, independent, and collaborative time into the product creation. For example, you could allow students to outline their project and present it to a partner or a small group. Giving and receiving feedback will help students to further develop their ideas. Finally, create a realistic timeline that students can follow while they design their products. Keeping deadlines short will ensure students remain engaged. But be sure they have enough time to conduct research, brainstorm, and collaborate as needed. Next, you'll want to implement the activity. Introduce the real-world issue and tell your students you need their help brainstorming creative solutions to the problem at hand. Describe the product they'll create and the assessment criteria you will use. Then distribute any necessary resources. Next, monitor the class and provide assistance when needed, leaving space for students to work through challenges on their own. When everyone has finished, model how they should present their solutions and provide feedback to their peers. Examining real-world issues is both inspiring and challenging, so it's important to give students time to process this experience. Once everyone has presented, it's time to reflect. Students can write a journal entry, engage in meaningful conversation with a small group, or ask questions aloud in a whole class discussion. You can guide the conversation by highlighting your students' most creative solutions or presenting factors they may not have considered. You may even provide resources to help students contact their local leaders about their ideas. Lastly, you'll assess your students' products with thoughtful feedback. This helps students identify gaps in their logic and seek ways to grow both their skills and their perspectives. Now let's take a look at one of my students' dioramas. I really like how Arthur considered both physical and sensory adaptations when designing his playground. He created a wheelchair-accessible swing and gadgets children can use when they feel anxious. I encouraged him to email the council members advocating for the new playground. Knowing his ideas could have a real-world impact will not only motivate Arthur, but also make him feel more invested in his community. In this activity, your students will learn new skills from logical thinking and problem solving to public speaking and risk-taking. With opportunities like these, they can shape both their lives and the world around them.
Hello, I am Daniela from Cebu City, Philippines, and I'm teaching biology. Aside from the most rewarding part of being a teacher wherein my students succeed, this year I was chosen as the Teacher of the Year for my school. Being an international teacher, it is indeed a great honor to receive those awards. I think I received those awards and recognition maybe because of my dedication and love for my work. I am really making sure that I am offering myself to be always a part of committees in different school activities programs. I also volunteer to be one of the after-school tutoring teacher and also for Saturday school. For 2 consecutive years, I was able to produce students who got 100% in biology EOC. I believe that the key to engaging my students into my content would be, number one, I have to really win their hearts first, and not only their hearts, but their trust. Second is, I really mean business with regards to learning and instruction. I can give them different strategies in teaching so that at the end, they will learn something. And of course, I make sure that I can establish a healthy relationship with them. For me, student engagement would mean the level of my students' interest, their level of curiosity, their level of dedication to the work that I'm going to give them. And as a teacher, I can see it through their eyes that they are really enjoying the activities. Teachers should give really varied, engaging, but challenging activities so that you can ignite the interest, the motivation of the students. I really believe that having cornell notes or focus note-taking would be an effective way for the students to learn something. In focus note-taking, they are going to formulate some questions about the topic that I'm discussing, and in the second column, they are going to put the concepts. In our topic this week, we are discussing macromolecules already. So I ask them to formulate questions, as many as they can. They are going to give an answer to that question in the second column. So they are going to develop the skill on asking questions, identifying problem, and the last part of the cornell notes, they are going to sum up the main concepts of the topic. So all concepts should be there. They can review, they can use that one as a tool wherein they can prepare for a test. I really consider focus note-taking as very important. Because of this program, I am able to widen my understanding, my awareness on cultural diversity. Based on my experience, these students of mine, they have their individual differences. I am learning to be more patient and to extend more love and care for them because I know they need that.
We often tell our students to take notes, and sometimes they think that as long as they do, they will succeed in learning the material. However, simply writing down information and then setting it aside isn't always enough. Even if a student has a great memory, they are only recalling facts, not engaging in the critical thinking components you get from asking deeper questions. That's why I'm introducing the 3-section notes method of note-taking to my students during our new lesson on photosynthesis. First, have your students fold a piece of paper into 2 vertical columns with 1 horizontal section at the bottom. Or you can use this template. My students will take notes from my direct instruction in the right column, record their questions and individual insights in the left column, and summarize the new information at the bottom. And the process allows the plant to store energy, grow, and release oxygen into the atmosphere. Okay, class, great job listening and taking notes on the right side of your sheet. Now we are going to reflect on this new information with your own questions and observations in the left-hand column. I'm setting a timer now.
Wow, I knew that plants could absorb sunlight, but I still don't understand how chlorophyll works. I better write that down. Plants store energy in the molecular bonds of sugar molecules? Is that like the sugar we eat? I love sugar.
By writing questions, new vocabulary, and personal reflections in the left column, students know what to follow up on in discussion. This enriches student connections with the topic. When they become more adept at the strategy, they will begin filling out both the left and right sides simultaneously. By summarizing the information of the lesson, they are learning to identify valuable main ideas. These are higher-level thinking processes that take learning beyond simply recalling facts. After they've filled out the top 2 columns, have them summarize the instruction in a few sentences in the bottom section. Now that we have our notes and have reflected on them, let's take some time to quietly summarize today's lesson.
Let's see. Photosynthesis is how plants turn light into energy. They use it to function and grow and then store something. Then they actually release oxygen, which we get to breathe. Chlorophyll makes plants green, and then they turn that light into energy through photosynthesis. That's how they use light to grow. That's so cool!
Thanks, Jasper. Ask your students to turn their sheets in and review their notes. You'll be able to use the left side to track what they are retaining and build short assessments based on the questions they ask. 3-section notes support independent learning by allowing students to record what they learn in direct instruction and then interact with it by asking questions, making associations, and summarizing information in ways that connect them with the content.
Educators across the U.S. are performing incredible work on a daily basis. Today, we've been lucky to listen to some amazing teachers explain how they have achieved success in the classroom. I hope that you will allow these stories to influence your own practices, encourage you to reflect on your achievements, and inspire you to share your experiences with others. As always, feel free to reach out to us here at Launch Your Classroom if you have a teacher success story to tell. This month on Launch Your Classroom, we're going to continue to focus on teacher success stories. We're going to hear directly from another educator as she shares her expert classroom tips. We'll demonstrate how you can connect your students with digital pen pals. Then we have a very special LYC and EPI holiday message. And at the end of the month, we'll sit down with an expert educator to discuss how to relax, reflect, and renew during the winter break. So be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel to get our upcoming content. And check out launchyourclassroom.com for all your professional development needs. Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Launch Your Classroom.